world. This is She Buys It with Whitney Nicely.
Hey, hello. Welcome to the She Buys It podcast. I am super excited that you're here today. We have an awesome guest expert coming from Phoenix, and she specializes in lease options. So y'all know how excited I am to talk to this woman out here doing these real estate deals and using creative financing. Oh, I'm so excited. So I want to introduce Anne, and she is going to be talking about how you can get started, how you can do these deals, how you can systemize them so that you can go full time and make all the money, honey. So, Anne, welcome to the She Buys It podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. Is there anything else I missed in the intro that you want to add?
No, I mean, I'm super thrilled to be here. I just love your energy, and I've just always enjoyed all of your podcasts. So I'm just super excited that I can now be a part of it.
Woohoo! So I want to talk about the good, bad, and the ugly. So let's start from the very beginning. Let's talk about your first deal. Let's talk about when you were flipping houses. Let's talk about what happened to get you more into lease options and to really make you realize that you needed a system, or you needed a team, or you needed this partner. Like, what happened that got you to where you are today?
Oh my gosh, how much time do you have? Because every single one of those things you just said, I mean, I've gone through it in my mind, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember when I realized I needed a team. Oh yeah, I realized it would be easier if I had a system. Oh yeah, I realized that I wanted to do buy and hold versus doing the flipping still. I mean, there's just so many different ways that we could go about this.
Well, there's thousands of ways to make money in real estate, and a lot of people want to do all 1,000 ways on the very first day, or at least the first week. So tell me, you were flipping houses and that was great, but what happened that you said, you know what, I want passive income. I want to buy houses differently. I want a team. I want to live.
Yep, absolutely. So this actually started, I was still working my corporate job, and a very good friend of mine from, we've known each other for 15 years. And he said, hey, I've been flipping homes, and you're not happy with your corporate job. He says, you're working 90 hours a week. You're working for somebody else. Why don't you take the skills that you have in logistics and operations? You're very systematized. Why don't we utilize that? I have the knowledge. I've done all the flipping before, but why don't we take your skill set, which is operations, building out those systems, creating the automation, and we can merge our forces, and I can show you how to flip homes. And I'm like, this sounds fantastic. This will actually get me out of my corporate job, get me to be that entrepreneur that I know is in my soul. Right? You just know that you want to be an entrepreneur. You may not know what you want that to be, but you know you're an entrepreneur. And so we started flipping a couple of homes, and I'm going to tell you, the first couple, they were terrible. They were absolutely awful. I had never done it before, but I'm very systematized. I'm like, you know what? I've always grew up very frugal. My parents were entrepreneurs. My grandparents were entrepreneurs. And I just have this spirit of, I know how to run a business. And I know that you need to get the most cost-effective way to get your operations, to get your materials in order to get things done. So I went out and I found the cheapest tile. I mean, it was still great tile, but I found the best deals. And I was going through, and I'm doing all the shopping that women love to do to find the best deal. And the flip that was supposed to take a month ended up taking 3. And then instead of costing, instead of putting 20,000 in, it ended up costing 35. I mean, because these are just the things that happen, especially on a first one. These are the mistakes that most people make with your first couple of deals. So the first one, I think we only made about $10,000. The second property, we actually ended up losing money because we didn't do the proper inspections, and we realized that there were plumbing issues behind the wall, and the integrity that is within us. We were like, hey, we can't just leave this. We have to take care of this. So there was a lot of that going on. So we ended up losing a bit of money on that particular deal. And I realized, man, as much fun as flipping is from an operations standpoint, I mean, this is not something that I want to continue to do, because eventually I'd like to have a family. I'd like to have, kids, and I don't want to be 9 months pregnant in the middle of Phoenix in 120-degree weather trying to paint some house. And so I realized there's got to be a better way. Right. So I started looking for what other people were doing.
Well, hang on. I want to hit on that, because everybody sees the TV shows, and flipping does look like so much fun, but it's a job, and people don't realize that it is like a full-time job. So if you replace your 9 to 5 with flipping, you just got a different job with more stress.
Yes.
and more phone calls and more things that can go wrong. So yes, I agree with you. Flipping is fun, but I had the same realization that in 2015 I was getting married and I thought I can't be ragged out like this all the time if I'm going to move on with my life. So flipping is good and you learn a lot.
And it was a great learning experience.
But at some point, it's just not fun anymore. At least not for me. I have a friend, April Crosley, and she just loves it. She feeds off of it. And I just don't. So if you always think it's fun, then do it. But when it's not fun anymore, you got to find these other ways. So let's talk about these other ways to make some money in real estate.
Well, and this was the next thing is, I'm thinking to myself, if I flip a house now, okay, great. I got this chunk of money. And if we could have continued to do that and gotten really, really good at it. But every time you flip a home, what do you lose? You're losing the ability for that property to make you money. So now you've got a big check, but you're looking around like, okay, great. What do I do with this chunk of money? And I don't want big chunks of money every couple of months. I want steady passive income. I want something that when I'm 70 years old, it's still paying me. I'm not working for that capital anymore. The money is working for itself. Right.
And there's nothing wrong to do both at the same time because you got that skill. So now if you flip a house and you make a bunch of money, I use those big chunks to pay off some other properties so that when I'm 70, I'm free and clear. Or now I'm in a process of borrowing against my free and clear properties so that I can loan on other people's flips, or so that I can buy other things and not have to worry about the bank. So it all has a place and it all has a purpose, but you have to learn and grow through this, and your mindset has to be right. And I can tell you've got the right mindset so that when you are 70, you're just relaxing and cashing a river of checks.
Absolutely. Well, and then we started thinking, okay, great. So we exhausted the amount of capital. I mean, I'm in my 30s. We only have so much capital when we get to certain parts of our lives. And so we exhausted all of our capital in buying our first rental properties. And we said, okay, well, how do we continue to buy more rental properties? And so then we started partnering with investors. And this is, how our private equity firm really emerged, is that we started buying our own rentals and realizing that we could partner with others and expand our portfolio and help others along the way.
And do it a lot faster.
A lot faster, absolutely. So in the last few years, we've been able to acquire 55 properties. Yeah, so we're very excited. Our goal is to get to obviously we've got milestones for our business, and our next goal is to get to 100 properties. And so a lot of these are done with our investors. And so what we do is we help individuals. We only create win-win-win scenarios. And this is why we do lease option versus doing traditional rents, right? So it's got to be a win for our investor. It's got to be a win for our company, because obviously if we aren't making a profit, we go out of business. And then it's got to be a win for our resident, which means that we are helping them to live the American dream and helping them to get toward home ownership, which is really the goal of what we're trying to accomplish here.
Awesome. So tell me about that first lease option. How'd you find it? How'd you talk to the seller? How'd you advertise for a tenant buyer? How'd you do all those things? Because it takes a different skill set to go from flipping to thinking through a buy and hold or a lease option. So tell me about that first one.
So this is actually my favorite deal still, because number one, it was my first buy and hold that we did. It was also just a really, really cool way that we ended up acquiring this home. So we found one of my realtor connections actually found this property, and he said, they're in foreclosure. We're thinking about doing a subject to on this property. And so I said, great. So we started going through all of the paperwork, realized that there's just no way we're going to get this done. And there was a lot of issues with the deed.
Uh-oh, you cut out. Hold on. Your volume cut out. Try again. Try again. Can you hear me?
Oh, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, you're back.
Okay. All right, cool. So we were in the process of doing this sub 2, and we realized that it was not going to happen. It was in December, and it was December of 2016. We started going through, we were trying to get all the paperwork done. One of the residents was a Mexican citizen, not an American citizen. And so we were having trouble getting identification for them to be able to sign and do the notary. I mean, it was just a mess. And so I ended up going, at the time I was dating a Frenchman. And so every Christmas we would go and visit his family in Paris. And so we ended up, I was like, guys, like I'm leaving on the 22nd. We have to get this done. We didn't end up getting it done. And so on the 3rd of January, we actually bought this property at auction while I was sitting at the kitchen table at his grandparents' house. And I was on the phone. I'm no exaggeration. I was on the phone with my bidder, and we were just going through, and we ended up buying the property for $20,000 less than what we would have acquired it for. So
that's awesome.
it was a huge win. So we were just ecstatic. To date, that property's valued closer to about 185. So in the last 2 years, it's appreciated. It's almost doubled in value.
That's awesome. So when you bought it from the sale, then you had to pay cash. So you already had investors lined up?
Yes. Yeah. So we actually, this was my first time ever buying a property at auction. So there were a lot of firsts. My first time, buying it when I wasn't even around, the first time buying it at auction. There was just a lot of firsts, and it was just very exciting. So again, this is my favorite deal. So we ended up putting about $15,000 into the property. I completely over renovated it. So we put out rocks, and we were making it all beautiful. We painted the whole interior. We did everything to this home. And so I ended up putting about $15,000 into it. So we were about 115 in. And so what we did is we rented that property for $11.95. To date, I think we're closer to about $13.50 on that particular property, and our payment's about $650.
So when you were looking for somebody to move into it, do you get non-refundable option fees plus monthly rent?
That is correct. Yes. So because of the way the Dodd-Frank is written, we had to change a lot of the documents from what lease options used to be. And so now you have two separate documents. You've got your lease, which is just a regular lease, and then you have a separate option. And this is the way they can't be stapled together. You can't talk about them together. So we have a completely separate option. And so the option is where we have the option fee. So our option fee is always $3,900. It makes it really easy because this allows us to reuse a lot of our marketing. So if we had different option fees, then we have to change our marketing every single time for each property. But if we go out and we blanket the entire neighborhood, and I've got 4 properties that are currently vacant, I want to be able to just say, every one of our homes, you pick it, it's all $3,900 down. And so this way it allows for us to reutilize our marketing and not have that added expense every time we remarket our properties. So it's very fun. So with our marketing, the way that we find our residents, we have a very proprietary way that we go about it. I can talk a little bit about some of it because a lot of it's just very grassroots. So we go out and we blanket the neighborhoods. We hire some college kids that are local that will go out and they'll knock on doors, and they're like, hey, I'm not sure if you are renting currently, but if you're interested in ever becoming a homeowner, we have a home right around the corner that will allow you to eventually own the home. They already live in the neighborhood. They already like the neighborhood. This is why they live there. And so by doing that grassroots marketing, we put flyers up. We got the neon signs. I've got pinks and greens and oranges and blues. And because everybody's going to respond differently to a different color. Women, they love the pink. They're like, oh yeah, I saw your pink sign. It was over on that corner up there. And then we've got the little pull tabs off, like the guitar lessons. I literally cut all of those out. We've got a phone number on there, 3-bed, 2-bath, call me. And then it's got our phone number on it. And so we do a lot of that grassroots marketing and a lot of the flyering. And this is really how we find a lot of our residents. They already live in the neighborhood. They want to stay in the neighborhood, but all you're doing is you're just giving them a little bit more of an option to become an owner versus just renting that same home for the next 5, 10, 15 years of their life. We want to help build the economy and build the community up. And so the difference between doing a lease option and a straight rentals traditionally are bringing down the demographic, right? So when you see rentals, you always know the rental because it's typically the one that has the grass that's not being cut. They don't take care of their home, their property, right? But if you get somebody in under lease option and they know that they'll eventually own the home, they take care of the grass. They're the ones putting in the sod. We've had this happen over and over and over again where they're actually doing improvements on the home. So even if they end up moving out of state or they get a job in another part of the city and they need to move, we typically get the property back better than what we gave it to them in. So now we're reducing the turnover because again, their expectation and their psychology is telling them they're eventually going to own. So they don't just stay for 12 months and move on. They stay for 3, 5, 7 years. And guess what? We have no turnover. So they're paying every single month. We have zero turnover. We don't have any turnover costs. So it just reduces a lot of that extra cost and our time and effort, right? In managing those types of properties.
I love that. How did you decide on 3,900?
Actually, so we started working with a coach. So I completely believe, I know a lot of people are like, oh, you don't want to, you don't want to tell people use coaches. I use a coach. I absolutely do. And I think that it was probably the best thing for us because it allowed us to reduce our learning curve, right? He already had a lot of those systems in place. And every time I had a question, I'm like, man, I ran into something I've never done before. Never done an eviction before, unless there's a first for everything. So our first eviction, I had to call. I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm doing. And he'd say, hey, no problem. Let me walk you through it. These are the people you should call here in town. This is the way that the eviction is going to go. These are the things that you need to make sure that you follow, within the guise of the law. So it was great to have somebody there that actually did that. And this is why we decided to do the 3,900 is because he said, hey, Anne, I've done it before where I've done, 2,000 depending on the value of the home. I've done 5,000. He said, and I just decided on 3,900. Because it's not as much as a normal down payment if you were going to get a mortgage, but it's also enough to make sure that people are actually serious about what it is that you're doing. I'm like, that makes sense. So this is why we decided on 3,900.
All right, fantastic. So talking about coaching, I love coaching. Michael Jordan wouldn't have become who he is without a coach because he got cut from the basketball team and then the coach coached him for a year to get him to where he needed to be to go. I love coaching. I'm a coach. I always hire coaches. And even in my properties, like if I need something, I'm going to hire a pro to just either fix it or tell me how to fix it so that we can move on. Because you're absolutely right, that learning curve. I mean, why take 10 years to do something? Why walk to California when we could just pay somebody to get us there faster? We pay a pilot.
Exactly.
So I completely agree. I love coaches.
Yep.
So tell me a little bit more about the sellers that you're looking for that fit your model.
The sellers as far as like how we do our acquisitions?
Yeah.
Very, very much the same way. So, I mean, there are probably over 90 different ways that you can buy a home.
Oh yeah, for sure. Just in case anybody doesn't know, you do not have to list your house with an agent to get it to sell. There are at least 90 ways to sell a house and to buy a house.
And the way that it was explained to me is it's kind of like going to a grocery store, right? And every aisle is going to be a different way to buy homes. You've got HUDs, you've got REOs, you've got, subject to, you have leases, there's so many different ways. And this is where you can really start to hone in on your niche. And so we really specialize in those subject twos. We really specialize in seller carry. We specialize in doing grassroots marketing for these types of homes. And so we just have developed this great systems and great people that we work with. I mean, we work with bird dogs. We work with all kinds of individuals. There shouldn't be any pride in what it is. Not necessarily pride. I think I misspoke there. A lot of people have a very unique way at looking at like how they purchase properties. They're like, oh, well, I'll never use a wholesaler because I know that I'll get a better deal. And I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter to me if I'm using a wholesaler, if I'm using a bird dog, if I actually go out and knock on the door myself, as long as the numbers work, it doesn't matter. And a lot of people have this, arrogance around how they actually want to buy the home. They're like, I only buy at auction. I'm like, great, you're leaving a lot of money on the table because you're waiting for that grand slam, right? If we talk about baseball, I'm looking for singles and doubles, because if I can get enough singles and doubles over the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, I'm going to be so much farther ahead than if I waited for that grand slam every 6 months, every year. So now we can multiply the amount of cash flow, the amount of properties that we have under control, that it really just allows us to create more profitability in a shorter amount of time for our investors.
I completely agree. And everybody is a lead source. So even if you get a single or a double, to use the baseball analogy, on this property, if you take care of those people, they will hand you off to more people, and then you don't have to do as much marketing because word of mouth starts to spread, and then you've got more leads than you know what to deal with, and you're hiring more people just to help you close more deals.
Yep. Well, we do the same thing with our residents. So around right before Christmas, typically about November, right before Thanksgiving, we send out mailers to all of our residents, and we say, hey, if you know someone that's interested in getting into the same, especially your great residents, who do you think that they hang out with? They're not going to hang out with degenerates. They're going to be hanging out with people that are exactly like them. So if you find great residents, give them an incentive. Say, I'll give you $500 if you refer somebody and they move into one of our homes. And if you obviously are satisfied with what we've been able to provide for you, don't you want to help somebody that you know to become a homeowner as well? That's number one. So we get individuals that are referring us people constantly. They get $500. This reduces, number one, our downtime if we have a vacancy, number one. And number two, it reduces the amount of effort that we need to do on our side. So wouldn't that be worth $500? That's basically the cash flow for 1 month of our rentals.
It's a total no-brainer. And as long as you're building that good name in the community, and you're talking about earlier your integrity, that will take you so far. Do it the right way and take care of your people.
Absolutely.
Now, when we talk about the residents, do you work with them all the way through getting a mortgage, or how long do you give them before they need to either cash you out, or can they just stay forever without getting a mortgage?
Pretty much either way. So what we do is we actually build individual portfolios for each one of our investors. And so what this does is it allows us to have a lot more control, and the investor has a lot more transparency and a lot more control over the assets. And so this then just becomes a conversation that I have with the investor when, let's just give a real world example. If we have, so we do lease options anywhere from 5 years up to 15 years. And this depends on what we are looking for from a portfolio perspective with the investor, as far as what it is that they're looking to obtain. Are they looking to get cash flow more immediately? Are they not really close to retirement, but they just want to roll over their money for every sale, for all the cash flow? Do we want to roll that back into buying more properties until you get to retirement? So we really are able to customize this for each one of our investors, which is really, really fantastic. So what we do is, let's just take a 5-year example. So if we put somebody in under a 5-year option, they can't cash out for the first 2 years. So this actually helps us because, number one, we spend a lot of time and effort trying to find that property, right? So we want to make sure that that's going to cash flow for a minimum of 2 years. This also allows us to get out of short-term capital gains, and this will give us long-term capital gains, right? So those are the two reasons that we hold that for a minimum of 2 years. So from the end of year 2 all the way to the end of year 5, so a total of 3 years, they have to cash out. Now, if we state an option price in our option and it doesn't quite appraise because we built it out because on a 5-year period, in year 3, if they come back and they say, hey, Anne, the property, the value is, $25,000 less. Great. Then I go back to the investor and I say, hey, they've been great payers for the last 3 years. They're very interested. They got their credit fixed. Like, they have been model residents. Do we want to help them out? And do we want to take a reduction in our back end profit? Because, it goes back to the whole concept of one in the hand's better than two in the bush. We don't know when the recession is coming, right? So what would you rather do? Do you want to tell them, no, we need to wait until it appraises? That's option number 1. Or option number 2, we can help out a great family to become a homeowner. And they've done everything that they wanted and needed to do in order to get to this point, which is really commendable for them. And what we are looking at is, especially on this property we just mentioned. So if we bought it for 104 and put in 10, and let's just say our all-in cost about 120, and that one, I think we had a lease option, an option price of 198. So they're only 3 years into their option. So if they came back today and they said, hey, it really only appraised for 185, are we willing to take a $10,000 reduction to get that profit now, so we can go out and we can buy another property? So now we've got 2 instead of 1, and now we've got cash flow on 2, we've got depreciation on 2, we've got deductions on 2. So this goes back, and it just becomes what's good for the investor is good for us. So if you want to tell me, hey, you know what, let's hold off. I can't take that kind of capital gains right now. No problem. We'll let them know we've got another 2 years that we need to wait, or let's try back in 6 months and see where we're at. We can do those types of things because we have a lot of that transparency, and because this is, again, whatever is good for our investors is good for us. So that's really how we model it.
That's awesome. I love that. That. And that works really, really well. And I can see where that is a win-win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guarantee that there will be situations where people might say, you're leaving money on the table. So if we do a lease option and it's a 7-year option. And let's just say that we all know that the Phoenix market is very volatile, right? So if we do a lease option, we base it off of, a 5% growth over the next few years. And it ends up exploding, and they've got a 7 or 9% growth in a couple of years. And, instead of it being worth 198, it's now worth 205. Fantastic. Well, we just made $98,000 on this home. That's number one. So what is wrong with giving them a little bit of equity and allowing for them to just have $10,000 worth of equity in their home?
There's nothing wrong with it. People that are going to count the beans like that are never going to make it to the big leagues because they're so focused on the little pennies.
Yeah.
And so the greater picture, they're never going to win. So don't let those people get you down.
The way that I look at it is there's so much money to be made in this industry. Why are we gonna complain about a $10,000 loss when you're actually helping out a family? So this is really, it
isn't even really a loss. It's still a gain.
It absolutely is. So a lot of people
totally cool.
Oh yeah,
totally cool.
This is why we do it, because if we can help to benefit them at all, that's great. That's fantastic. Why not give them a little bit of a head start in life?
Absolutely. So I'm a huge supporter, fan of coaches, but also a community of real estate investors. So are you a member of the Phoenix RIA?
Yes. Yeah. So AZ RIA, I haven't been going recently. We've been doing a ton of traveling. We're being introduced to a lot of family office right now, so that we can help to get to that 100 more quickly. We still love to work with private investors as well.
So tell me about the Arizona RIA. Tell me about the AZ RIA. Tell me, why you joined, what the benefits are, the people that go to these meetings. Like, why is it important for you to be a member of the RIA?
I actually found my coach at the RIA. And so it was no exaggeration. It was literally the first meeting that I went to. He came up and he spoke, and it was actually January of 2016. And I realized I wanted to get more education. That's why I joined the RIA, and I absolutely love my RIA. The Phoenix RIA is one of the largest in the country.
Yes, it is.
I mean, have you ever been? It's huge. We actually have an entire amphitheater, and most of the time it's completely full. I mean, we just have so many individuals that come, and I've met so many great private money lenders. I've met so many great friends that I've just come in contact with, and we all help each other. I call them again, it goes back to having that great community. I can call them and say, I've never had this happen before. What do I do? Hey, I've met some great people that have, recommended handyman and, different things to help reduce our costs when we have transition, things like that. So whenever we buy a new home, I've been introduced to, exterminators, people that redo countertops, people that redo floors, painters. I mean, my entire phone is basically just vendors and handymen and great people that I've just been able to meet through that. And it's just such a great community.
I would highly encourage you also. In the beginning, a lot of people join the RIA because they're new and they want more education. But now that you are a deal maker and now that you're successful, I really want you to go back and pour into the people that it's their first meeting and the people that are trying to get their first deal done. And this is top secret. This is going to be the first time I've told somebody this. So please don't say anything yet, but this is a great just life situation, and I'm not exactly sure when this podcast is going to play, but for anybody that's listening, it should be public knowledge by then. But yesterday, I'm so excited. Yesterday, I bought the Knox RIA.
Did you really? Congratulations.
Our local Knoxville RIA. I just bought the charter rights, the chapter rights, everything. I am the new president of the Knox RIA. And so, it's always been in my heart to have people go and love it. But now I've got this whole other perspective on going, joining, and participating in your local RIA.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you ever want me to come out and speak, like I will 100% will come out and talk about lease options all day long.
Awesome. Awesome. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you want people to know? How can they get in touch with you if they want to get back and find out more what you got going on, what the Phoenix area is like? Should they buy? Should they not? All those things. How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best way is usually to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can also reach out to us on our website, which is amagrande.com. So it's www.amagrande.com. Or you can send me an email, which is Anne@amagrande.com.
Awesome. And I will be planning on popping into the Phoenix area in the next year. So I will let you know when I make it to Phoenix, and we'll have a great time.
That's fantastic. I look forward to it so much.
All right. Thanks so much, Anne. And don't forget, while you're here, to subscribe to the She Buys It podcast to get more information and to find more women out there doing these deals. I'm so proud of you. Y'all keep going. Make that money, honey. And we will talk to you again next week.
Bye,
Bye, ladies.
Bye.